Today we are going to be talking about the forces that influence curriculum. Now, what is curriculum? A broad definition of curriculum is all the educational experiences students have while at school. Now, what are the forces? There are 8 of them. First, we have national curriculum standards, textbooks, mandated standardized assessments, state governments, teachers, local school boards, parent and community groups, and lastly, the federal government. All of these have a different impact on curriculum. Therefore, throughout this presentation, you will learn about how each one of these impacts in their own way. First, we're going to focus on the national standards. As many of you can relate to, national standards are limited to textbook content. Although, there was a school reform movement and state accountability legislation that changed this. They were moving schools out of their comfort zones and into a new adventure. In 1990, a major subject matter professional organization developed curriculum standards in subject areas. Elementary and secondary schools, as well as teacher preparation programs at universities, benefited from this. As far as standards created more rigorous content for students, as well as developed a comprehensive curriculum that focused more on problem solving and higher level thinking. This involved the students to become more engaging in what they were learning. Now let's look at Common Core. Common Core is what moved the nation to national standards. Every state participated in the development of these standards except for 2, Texas and Alaska. These standards were released in 2010. This involved K-12, English language arts, and mathematics. The reason why us as a country were moving towards the Common Core was we were trying to compete with the top performing countries and stay with them and not fall behind. As well as we were preparing students for success not only in society but as well as the global economy. As you can see by the statistics posted on the slide, in 2014, 46 states were a part and adapted the Common Core, and by 2015, a year later, 3 of the states had dropped, and now 43 states were the only ones that were still using Common Core. As far as national standards and Common Core, there are benefits, but there are also harms as well. The first benefit would be for students to be able to transfer state to state without being behind in terms of the curriculum and content that they've already learned or are learning currently. Another benefit would be it strengthens the U.S. education system. By strengthening our education system, we are able to compete with the top performing countries and stay in line with them. And lastly, another benefit would be collaboration among teachers. So teachers in different states can share lesson plans and collaborate with each other because the standards and curriculum are the same state to state. A harm of the national standards and Common Core would be they're either too weak or too demanding on students and even teachers as well. And lastly, there is an increased emphasis on testing. As many of you have probably heard, with the national standards and Common Core, the teachers have been teaching to the test, which is not letting the students have the ability to actually learn the content, but just for memorization purposes, they are knowing what to memorize for the test in order to take the test. As far as Common Core and national standards, teachers do not feel like they have been given enough adequate training in order to keep up with these standards and teach them to the students, as well as they feel that they are given little support from the higher up with trying to transition to these standards. The second force are textbooks. I'm sure throughout your school career you have used a textbook at least once. And as you know, textbooks are used in and out of the classroom for homework activities or in-class assignments or just in order to prepare for a quiz or test. Although textbooks are not only beneficial to you, they are beneficial to the teachers as well. They can be used as instructors' manuals, tests, audiovisual materials, organization, and evaluation. It's important to know that textbooks are designed to appeal to the national market. Therefore, in picking a textbook, one should look to make sure that the textbook does not address sensitive material in a negative way, as well as it should not spark religious or political controversy, but only inform students about things and not pick a side. Also, when picking textbooks, teachers have to ensure that the textbooks are aligned with the Common Core and state standards. This is called curriculum alignment. The influence of textbooks are very big, but they are only big and beneficial to the students if they are carefully selected and if they help students master what is wanted by the curriculum standards. The third force is mandatory standardized assessments. These assessments are so important because these are the scores that get you admitted into post-secondary institutions, private elementary, secondary schools, as well as specialized public high schools. The basic assessments that you guys probably know are the SAT and ACT, which you probably took in order to get into college. These are what the scores universities look at to see if they want you at their university. As well as these assessments can be horrible and so long and just dreadful, they not only have an impact on us students, but they also have an impact on schools, teachers, and the programs. This is because these assessments are used as a way to assess the effectiveness of the schools, teachers, and programs. So not only are they assessing us as the students, but they are assessing teachers, which is why we are so prompted to do our best, because teachers do not want to look bad. The No Child Left Behind Act that was passed in 2001 is what requires the school to provide evidence that students are making yearly progress. If the schools fail to make the AYP, or the annual yearly progress, then they can be taken over by the state. Again, this is why we are prompted by teachers and school administrators to do our best, because this school can be taken over if us students fail to do good as classes on these assessments. Although something that we never heard of would be that if our school does very well on these tests, bonuses can be given up to $15,000 to principals and administrators just for us students making good progress on these exams. An influence would be these tests serve to make sure the standards are being taught through the curriculum. And if they're not, they also can provide results to make revisions to the curriculum if something isn't clicking with many students. There are very many negative outcomes, though, to these standardized assessments. The narrowing of the curriculum can occur by teaching to the test, which is widely spread now, and that you've probably seen through high schools that teachers always teach their students to the test in order to do well on the test, but it's not something that they're going to keep in their heads. As well as these standardized assessments make families invest tons of money into tutorial books, computer software, and seminars just to make an effort for their child's test scores to rise so they can get into the institution or the university that they want. Therefore, because of these standardized assessments, the test becomes a curriculum. So the curriculum is no longer creative and can be taught by how the teacher wants it, but it's taught to the test. The fourth force is the state government. The state government is involved in three things: the adoption of curriculum standards in different subject areas, mandating that students receive a passing grade in certain courses, and if they don't, they have to take a proficiency test in order to pass that course, as well as the State Board of Education, which is involved in curriculum requirements and guidelines. The guidelines involved detail goals and objectives and instructional activities that can be used. The State Board of Education also deals with the textbook adoption process, which is where they evaluate textbooks based on the standards and how well they relate to them, and then they create a statewide textbook list for teachers to then look at and pick textbooks for their subject content area. And this gives them a better idea of what textbooks they can use without having to look at the standards and making sure the textbook fits with the standards. It's a much quicker way if it's already established. The fifth force is teachers. Teachers used to have lots of control over the curriculum and what they taught to their students, but now teachers have very little control. What is taught by the teachers is determined by the state assessments and standards. Although teachers do have an important influence over the curriculum because they filter the curriculum to their students, so how they explain it and how they filter it to them is all based upon them. If they filter with enthusiasm, and their students will pick up on it and really enjoy it. If they produce a boredom out of it, then their students are clearly not going to want to pay attention. Although there are standards, teachers can still make a creative curriculum based on those standards. The sixth force is local school boards. The school boards make decisions about what content and learning opportunities are offered throughout the school, such as electives, for example. Another example would be instructional material to purchase, what curriculum guides are followed, what teachers are hired, how the budget will be spent, how to respond to issues that influence the curriculum, as well as the pressure of parents, which is probably the biggest one. There is a pressure from the parents because the school boards determine the programs and courses that are offered throughout the schools. Therefore, if a parent doesn't want that course and wants a different course for their child offered through the school, this can have a major impact with them fighting at the school board. Concerns of the school board involve their influence too much by small groups of parents and citizens, and the school board is disproportionately white professionals, business people with college degrees and income that's higher than average, and is not just your normal citizen. The seventh force is parent and community groups. These are invested people that have an interest in their local schools. Parents typically serve on educational committees, but not only parents, community members can serve on those as well. But parents, for sure, are in the Parent-Teacher Association, Band Boosters, Parents of Children with Disabilities, and Parents of Gifted Children. They are supporting these special programs and influencing legislation, supporting tax or spending referenda. These parents or community members bring pressure onto the school boards because, again, the school boards are deciding the curriculum material that's taught and what material that the school should get rid of, such as teaching evolution and ignoring religion. The eighth force would be the federal government. Historically, the federal government has been known to address national problems in education as well as promoting programs to serve youth with special needs, such as the Title IX, National Defense Education Act, and Individuals with Disabilities Act. In 2001, the No Child Left Behind Act passed. This meant that the federal government had broader involvement in and placed requirements on them. The federal government was then furthered more by the Obama administration Race to the Top program, which involved education reforms such as an increase in the number of charter schools and an increase in the teacher evaluation to student test scores. Awards that benefited from this program included 22 million students and 1.5 million teachers in more than 40,000 schools. So we have now finished learning about the 8 forces of curriculum, so let's review them. We have the National Curriculum Standards or the Common Core, textbooks, mandated standardized assessments, the state governments, teachers, local school boards, parent and community groups, and the federal government. I hope you realized why throughout your school career some things were done the way they were, and how maybe one day if you didn't like that, you can change and make a difference.